Good. Everybody take their seat. Yeah, okay. My going away song. All right, thanks everybody for joining us here this evening. And thank you for everybody for joining online as well. My name is Luke Bennett. I'm the conservation coordinator for the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. And I'm just going to real quickly say, if you'd like to ask a question tonight, we ask that you hold them to the end of the presentation. And if you're online, you're more than welcome to ask a question. You can type that into the chat or into the Q&A at any point during the presentation. It won't mess anything up if you type it even in the middle of the presentation. And that's about all for me. I'm going to pass things over to the South Wake Conservationists President, Monty Murray. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Yep. All right. So welcome, everybody. Welcome people here in Holly Springs at Bass Lake Park, beautiful Bass Lake Park. We have an empty row of chairs here. So what I would say is if I remove this row of chairs, will all of you move back another row? Yeah, I thought so. All right. Well, I want to welcome everybody who's on Zoom as well. We know there's a number of people across the state that have joined, and we have a pretty exciting program tonight. We'll explain that in a moment, but in terms of who we are, we're the South Wake Conservationists. We're located in this area in Wake County, and we serve the greater Raleigh area. We're an all-volunteer organization. Our mission is to conserve and improve wildlife habitat diversity, and through public outreach, as well as with conservation projects, which is a lot of what we do. You check out all the different things that we do. If anybody, maybe you're not here in the room and isn't familiar but lives in the area, check it out. You could see it on our website. Those that are in the room, we show a lot of different activities that we do, and it's all good and worthwhile and fun. Most importantly, though, the most immediate thing coming up next is a field trip next week on Friday. I think it's at 10 o'clock at Walnut Creek Wetland Center. Dave Barber is our coordinator for that. Thank you, Dave. And that's, again, it's a tour of the wetland center and the wetlands surrounding it. It should be very, very interesting. It's a fascinating place, and I hope some of you can make it. In case you missed it, though, there was a big win for conservation that happened in February. Now, this is not brand new news, but some of you may not be aware that in February, Governor Cooper signed Executive Order number 305, and it sets the most ambitious conservation targets in the history of the state of North Carolina. This is really cool. It mandates that native plants would be used for all state-owned projects, which is huge. That is huge, because one of the problems that we have, and tonight's talk is about pollinators, is that you try to buy native plants, but the nurseries are selling the stuff they've always sold, and it's kind of a vicious cycle. It's hard to break that cycle. The state is a pretty big procurer of, plants, among many other things. So if they now are mandated to buy native plants, that's going to drive up demand from growers to produce more of them and make them available, which might make it easier for us to get them. So it's pretty big news. They also, this executive order covers much more than that. It protects and restores over 2 million acres of forests and wetlands throughout the state. So this is really great news. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but we're looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. We have a great program for you tonight. The speaker is a member of our board of the South Wake Conservationists, and is also the global education teacher for K-5 students at Pine Springs Preparatory Academy, which is here in Holly Springs. Her third grade classes have taken bold action, and I mean bold, over the past several years to support pollinators in many ways, including convincing the mayors of over 14, I think it's 14 now, 17 now. That keeps going up every time I look. In 17 municipalities, 12 of which are Wake County. So all of Wake County signed it, and now we have an additional, I guess, 5 surrounding areas of municipalities that have signed the National Wildlife Federation Monarch Pledge, which is a big commitment for any town. There's a number of actions that they have to commit to and then renew those commitments every year. So that is huge, and we're going to hear all about that tonight. She and her students were featured in the National Wildlife Federation blog, which is, went nationwide. It was a really nice article, and that was, I think it was in January. So if you didn't see that, that was a nice spread. But please welcome Katie Thompson.
Okay, I'll make sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Katie, and I'm here to talk about my awesome students. And it's not clicking, Monty. It's not clicking already.
Of course not.
Sorry.
Things will go better after this.
Okay.
See, just turn on, yes. We just used it.
Yeah, we tested everything. Clicking the screen. Yep, there it goes, but it's not all the way. There goes slideshow. And that's my first slide, so you can just leave it right there. Okay. All right, so I teach global education, and if you're wondering what global education is, in my classroom, global ed looks like social studies, environmental ed, science, geography, and financial literacy. So we do a whole lot of everything in global ed. That's why it's kind of fun to teach. It's not just one thing. Global ed is a special at my school, like art and PE. I teach kindergarten through 5th grade, 150 kids a day, 750 kids a week. So it's really busy, but lots and lots of fun. So I'm here today to talk about my 3rd grade world changers. I call them world changers because they do really great work around pollinators, and they should be recognized for what they do because they do amazing things every year. I have 125 3rd graders saving pollinators, changing the world. That's 5 classes of 25 3rd grade students. So everything that you see that I'm talking about today, that's with 125 kids with 5 different classes at a time doing all these projects. So how do I get kids to care about pollinators? I get that question often because they get so passionate, and people wonder, how do you get them to care that much? Well, this person was really an inspiration to me. This is John Robbins. He is not a stranger to us in this room. He is the National Wildlife Federation Board Chair. He used to be the North Carolina Wildlife Federation Board Chair. And about 8 years ago, he and Tim Guestwicki were guest speakers right here in this room for one of our monthly meetings. And I don't recall what the topic was, but John made this statement that really resonated and really touched my heart and really changed how I teach. And this is what he said: if kids don't know nature, they won't care about it. If they don't care about nature, they won't protect it. That just really stuck with me and really changed how I thought about teaching and changed how I thought about what messages I want kids to get. So I took his words and I played with them a little bit, and I made my own little formula that I use and follow in my classroom now. Knowledge, compassion, action. And I have those 3 words on my board in my classroom, not for the kids. Those are for me, because if I want the kids to have compassion, I have to give them that knowledge piece first. That's very important. I can't walk into the classroom and say, okay, kids, we're going to save pollinators today. They're not going to care if they don't have that knowledge piece, and they don't know why we have to save pollinators or why they're important. So we have to have that knowledge base first. That's so important. Once they have that, then they move just seamlessly into the compassion part. Once their heart is in it, then they want to do something, and kids love to do something. They want to be a part of the world and change things. So following this formula works for every class I teach, and really does make a difference. And I can get kids on board with just about anything I teach them if I follow this. So here's the 8 pollinators that we focus on, and we start right in August when school starts. We will study these pollinators from August through Christmas. This is the sheet I give them in their folder, and we'll do 1 pollinator a week, and even a couple of times we'll stay a couple of weeks on a few of these. So we do a really in-depth study on these. So they really get to know these pollinators. We start with the bee for obvious reasons. The bee is a really great place to start because then I can really introduce pollination to the kids. We learn about native bees, of course. We learn about honeybees. And we also talk about commercial beekeeping, which I think is interesting because we don't talk about commercial beekeeping, and I don't know why we don't, because it's kind of a touchy subject, I think. We look at this map in my classroom. We look at how commercial beekeepers travel all over our country. And really, commercial beekeeping is a backbone of farming in our country right now. And we also learn that this system is not really working very well, and it's not going to work forever. And I challenge my kids to be thinking about the future and think about what can we do, how could we be pollinating our food in the future? This system fails, which if you look at the data, it probably will eventually. Then we move right on to why bees are dying, because when we look at that commercial beekeeping, we see that we are losing bees at a really alarming rate. So this is a flip chart that the kids make. I have a large version here at the table at my display, but the kids make a small version, and these little rectangles are doors that can open up. And so the kids learn about habitat loss, pesticides, diseases and mites, and climate change. And when they lift their little doors, they write notes underneath reasons why these things are killing bees. And we spend some time looking at each one of these things individually. We don't talk about them in one class. We probably take 2 or 3 classes to talk about these. They learn about pesticides. Kids get really upset about pesticides. They can't understand why adults can't figure out that we don't or we shouldn't use them. We watch videos about pesticides and diseases and also extreme weather. And they can see how these things really, really are wiping out our bee population. So when we finish working on this chart, and they have a really good grasp of all those reasons, then we step back and we look at it and we realize, hey, this could be why beetles are dying too, or monarchs. And really, truthfully, why all pollinators are in trouble. These 4 reasons are really the reasons why our pollinators are in trouble. So before we even get into all the pollinators, I have such a good grasp of the why pollinators are in trouble and why we need to care about them and why we need to do something. I try not to be all doom and gloom, though. I have to give them some hope because they are the hope for the future. So we go right into what can you do? They need to know they can do something. And right away, the kids create a pocket pollinator guide. And I have a little sample with me here today. This is a little guidebook that they make to take home, and they draw 6 pollinator plants, label them. And I timed this perfectly during the fall planting time. So I send 125 kids home with 6 really great pollinator plants and tell them, go home, show this to mom and dad. These are great plants you can plant in your garden or in your yard right now that pollinators would love. And a lot of them do that. They go home and they come back and tell me that we got to plant some milkweed, or we got to plant some butterfly weed. They actually they love knowing they can do it, make something happen and make a change. We also look at how they can create habitat by making insect hotels. We don't have time to do this in class, or we don't have the materials, but a lot of kids go home and make these as well. They find these really interesting. And I always tell them they can raise awareness and use their voice. They can talk to people about not using pesticides. They can use their voice and tell people to stop or make a change in what they're doing. And I'm not going to talk about all these pollinators, but I just want to touch on a couple of the least popular ones, because I really like to focus on, I really want the kids to have a really good appreciation for all of these pollinators. And the wasp is one that nobody likes. The kids definitely don't like the wasp, but I want them to learn that the wasp is important. So we learn the cool things about wasps, that they pollinate figs. We think that's really neat. They eat lots of pests. They're nature's pest control. But the coolest thing about wasps, their superpower has to be their nest building ability. They make the coolest nests. If we really stop to look at them, they are pretty neat. And I bring in some nests to school and give them some magnifying glasses, and we really get into those and have a look at those. And they are fascinating. If there's no wasps around, they're really fun to look at. And if you've ever looked at a mud dauber nest, these are really cool. And the kids love these. There's a really great videos on YouTube about mud dauber wasps, and we look at those too. And these are so neat. This is flipped over, and these are little chambers, and the mud dauber wasp female lays the egg in each room, and she fills the room with paralyzed spiders for food for that egg. And so when the larva starts to grow, it has fresh food and it eats all those spiders. So it's just really, really neat. The kids think that's really cool. And so do I. And this is one of the slides from my deck at school. Poor wasps, they are definitely the least popular pollinator. We would never see a spray meant to kill hummingbirds, bees, or butterflies at the store. Wasps are important pollinators and they need to be protected too. And I just really want the kids to get that message and not to see a wasp and think, danger, we need to kill it. We don't want them around. And they get this message. And I know there is a time and place for this spray, but we don't need to be afraid of wasps all the time. And a little girl told me this year, she found this kind of spray in her garage and she threw it out. she didn't want her dad to use it. So they get the message. And that's what I want them to learn, that these wasps are a part of our ecosystem and they're important too. And the other pollinator that gets a lot of flack is the fly. And for obvious reasons, they're nasty. They carry a lot of diseases and bacteria. And we talk about how we don't want them in our homes. But they are really great decomposers, so they do a really good service for us. But as pollinators, they are very, very important in more ways than you might realize. And these are slides from my deck at school. On a colder, stormy day, flies will be the only pollinator you will see. Bees do not like bad weather, and they will not leave their hive. Flies, however, don't seem to mind the weather, and they pollinate rain or shine. So flies are really good at filling in the gaps in some places, in some ways that bees don't. Bees do not like the shade, therefore they do not pollinate in the forest. Flies aren't as picky as bees and are excellent at pollinating forest plants. What else don't bees like? Well, they don't like the cold. So places in the high Arctic where temperatures can often be cold, flies are actually very important key pollinators. So this is a great lesson for the kids to get too. And I hear my kids walk out the class after my fly lesson, hearing them say, I really like flies now, because I see them in a whole different way. Instead of thinking of them as dirty and nasty, they really are important. And now they can see them in a new light. And that's really what I want to happen. So at the very end, at Christmas, I leave Monarchs right to the very end. They're kind of our showstopper. And we start to learn about the monarch migration. And so learn that the typical monarch lifespan is about 4 to 6 weeks. So when the monarch leaves Mexico and flies northward, it takes about 3 to 4 generations to get to the top. And then when they get to southern Canada or northern America, and it's the end of summer, they actually become a super generation, and their life cycle changes drastically. And their life cycle, they can live for 8 months, and that super generation of monarch can make the journey from the top of our country all the way down through it to Mexico. And when I say super generation to my students, I think they hear superhero, because they cling to that. They get so excited about this journey. They think it's thrilling. They love this story. They love this journey. They just really relate to it. And they think it's so cool. So we talk about the threats, just the same threats we've learned about for all the other pollinators: weather, extreme weather, deforestation, pesticide use. But then we're going to throw a new one in here: milkweed. There's just a really big lack of milkweed, and that's huge for monarchs because it's the only plant they lay their eggs on. So the kids know this is a problem. We need more milkweed. So then I show them this chart, and this chart shows them the population of the monarch, and the monarch is in a really big crisis point at the moment. They are an endangered species. It took a long time to get them listed, but they have been listed. And just in 2024, this past winter, less than 1 hectare of land was covered by monarchs in Mexico. And that's how they measure the population. They measure the area they cover in Mexico. So really a low number. We don't like that. But in 2014, you will see the number was at its lowest point ever. A little over half of a hectare of land was populated by monarchs in Mexico. And that was a crisis for sure. And the following year, the National Wildlife Federation, in response to that, created this really great program called the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. And it's a program that reaches out to mayors and in cities and towns across North America, hoping that they'll help create habitat and awareness in their municipalities to help monarchs. And it's a really good idea. And here is their latest map of signatories. The orange dots are current signatories. This year they had 302 mayors sign the pledge, and the gray dots are previous year's signatories. So we're making some headway. And if we look back at that chart, I guess my chart is, yeah, there's the chart. If you look back at the chart, the numbers have gone up since they started this program, but now we're going back on a downswing, which I don't love. So this is where my kids, we start our letter writing campaign, and we go through all this, everything. You just got the very quick version of what they've just spent 4 months working on. And I tell them, with just a pen and paper, a pencil and paper, they can do something to help those monarchs. They can write a letter to a mayor and possibly create habitat in a faraway place. They don't have to plant the garden, you just have to send a letter. And the kids are thrilled to do this. I never have anyone say, no, I don't want to do that. They are thrilled to do this. So we get busy writing letters. And I do put a form letter on my board, on my screen in the room. And mostly just so it has words that they can copy, words like Mayor's Monarch Pledge or endangered species, monarch. And I tell them they can copy my letter if they want to, but if they want to write from their heart, they surely can. And they usually write from their heart. I'm about to read you a couple letters that are from the heart. This one on the left, I'm gonna have to get closer to read it because it's a photocopy and it's a picture of a photocopy, so it's hard to see, but it is the sweetest letter I've ever had in my hands at school. It says, "Dear Mayor Henderson, I can't read. I'm gonna have to move out of the space. I'm sorry. It's like, I'm Karis. There's something I need to tell you. Monarchs are endangered. I'm from Pine Springs Preparatory Academy in North Carolina, USA. Me and my friends encourage you to sign the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. We've been learning about monarchs in this 3rd grade class. Our global ed teacher, Mrs. Thompson, has taught us about the wonderful pollinators of the world. I think the little actions we do change the world, but we all need to participate in this. If we don't help them soon, monarchs could die, and that would affect the plants and food and animals. So could you pretty please sign the pledge and help save the world? Love, Karis, age 9. How great is that letter? Isn't that sweet? And if you're getting that letter and you can actually say no, then you must not have a heart. And this mayor actually said yes, and he did sign the pledge. It would be impossible to say no. And this other letter is very sweet too. Dear Mayor Smith, hi, I am Kate from Pine Springs Preparatory Academy. I want to help the monarch butterflies. They are endangered. Once I took care of one, and that was the one time I ever saw a monarch. They are so beautiful, and I really want more of them in the world. So can you please sign the Mayor's Monarch Pledge? That would be kind of you if you did that. And thank you, from Kate. And that mayor signed as well. So super sweet letters. They just really touch the people they get sent to. And then we also decorate our envelopes. The kids decorate their letters. And I forgot to mention, they also send a butterfly, a paper butterfly like this one here. They color it, cut it out, and they write a little message on the back. So every letter has a little butterfly that when the recipient gets it, the kids always imagine that it falls out and it flutters the ground. It's just a little surprise. So those letters are all ready to go in the mail. And here are some of our highlights of our work that we've done. So here's a map of Wake County and all 12 towns. Our first year of signing the pledge was 2018, and Mayor Sears signed for us. He was the first to sign in Wake County and one of the first 5 across the whole state. 2020, Mayor Gilbert signed in Apex for us. In 2021, Mayor Colley in Morrisville signed. And in the same year, Cary and Raleigh both signed, and not at our request. They heard about the pledge on their own and went ahead and signed without us having to ask, which we love. We didn't have to do all that work. The following year, 2022, there were 7 cities and towns left. I think I got a little bored and thought things were going slow. So I thought, well, I have 5 classes. I'm going to let each class choose a town. So they did. So we were going to reach out to 5 of those towns. And I told my friend Monty, we're going to get 5 towns this year. And Monty said, hey, but there's only 2 more. Why don't you get the other 2? I said, well, I'll get those next year. He said, no, get them this year and I'll get you a plaque and we'll have a celebration. And I, of course, take the challenge on. And guess what? We got all of them in that year. I went back to my kids and said, can we do 2 more? Can we write some more letters? And absolutely, yes, give us the paper. Let's do it right now. I mean, they're so gung-ho to do this. It's never a forced activity ever. They love it. So here we are. I got the plaque. We had the celebration. Monty got all the kids a certificate from the North Carolina Wildlife Federation. We got on the news. We released the monarch butterflies, and we became the most monarch-friendly county in the USA, thanks to 3rd graders. That was pretty great. It was very exciting. And here are some pictures, highlights of my students. A lot of sometimes we get invited, if we're local, we get invited to town halls, and these kids got to go to Apex Town Hall. That's my daughter, right beside Mayor Gilbert there. And there's Mayor Massengill and Fuquay-Varina signing the pledge in 2022. And this is Mayor Day, and she came to our celebration. She's from Knightdale, and they signed the pledge. And this is Mayor Marshburn from Garner, and he came to our celebration. And this was a really cute story. When he came to speak, he stood up in front of all 125 kids, and he pulled out this letter from his pocket. And he said, is there a Lila here? And Lila stood up, and she was the one who wrote the letter to him, and he really wanted to meet her. And so he asked if he could have his picture with her, and I thought that was adorable because he was as excited to meet her as she was to meet him. It was just really a touching moment. So 2023, last year, we have covered all of Wake County. I said to the kids, what do we do? Where are we going to go now? They decided to go around Wake County. There's a lot of counties around us. So we picked a few towns and started our letter writing all over again. When we reached out to Anger, and they signed the pledge for us in Harnett County. Mayor Mayevsky in Holly Springs re-signed for us. We got Mayor McFadden in Lillington to sign, and we got Mayor Hooks all the way over in Mebane to sign. And you might be wondering why we went way over there. Well, his grandson was one of my students, and we just couldn't let that connection go. And he was happy to sign the pledge, and he's been a great supporter of the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. So that was a win for both of us. So now we're at 2024, just this past spring. I've showed my kids all these same slides I just showed you guys. I showed them all the great things the kids ahead of them have done. I showed them we covered Wake County. We've started to go with the counties around us. Say, okay, kids, what are we going to do this year? Well, I have this map up, and this one little boy, Liam, raises his hand. Mrs. Thompson, I think we should go to Texas. It's like, okay, why do you think Texas? And he said, well, we know the Monarchs they've been in Mexico all winter, and they haven't been eating anything. And we know they haven't had much to drink because it's a dry season in Mexico. And we know Texas is going to be the first place they land when they get to our country. So we want Habitat to be there. So we should send them letters. It's like, wow, I could not argue with that logic. And I asked the rest of his classmates, what do you think? They all unanimously, yes, let's send letters to Texas. So this is where I have to do a little research and figure out what place is closest to Mexico and Texas and which one hasn't signed the pledge already, because there's a lot in Texas that have signed. So I found Laredo right on the border. Liam approved, and we sent letters to Laredo. And when we send our letters, we do not just send our letters to the mayor. We send them to every single city council member. And I tell the kids, if we sent all of our letters to the mayor might be busy or might be just might be overwhelmed and might just put our letters over in this basket and forget about them. But if we write to all of those people, one of those people might be one of our people. One of those people might be a pollinator person like us, might be someone who has a pollinator garden, or it might be a beekeeper. So when we reach out to all these people, we're really spreading our net out really wide and have a really good chance of getting that yes. So we'll address our letter to Mr. Torres or Miss Perez, that everybody will get a letter, and usually they'll get 2 or 3 handwritten letters from my students. So we sent letters to Laredo, and we found out that Laredo is a pretty big city, 236,000 people and 1,500 miles away. That was pretty far. That's the farthest we've gone. Then my next class, when I asked them, where are we going to send our letters? Well, they were really fascinated with that super generation, and they wanted to help the super generation on the top end of their journey instead of the bottom end, like Liam's class. So Canada, they said, well, I have a lot of ties there, so let's go to Canada. So I reached out to one of my favorite towns, and this is St. Andrews. And St. Andrews is a small town, a small population, but it's a resort town. It has lots of visitors. It's very touristy. So we reached out to them. We also reached out to Fredericton, New Brunswick. The next class thought writing the letters to Canada sounded pretty cool, so they wanted to do it too. So this was where I went to university. So I thought this might be a good choice, and I know they're very monarch friendly, this city. What I didn't know is that they have signed a pledge, not the mayor's monarch pledge, because I do a lot of research. We never ask someone unless we know for sure they've never signed the pledge before. But there's something similar in Canada that they signed that they thought was just as important. We didn't think it was just as important as our pledge, and we asked them 3 times to please sign it, and they wouldn't. But they did something. We had some fun with this group. One of this, Mr. McGarity, he wrote us a poem, a very nice long poem, which was fun. The kids thought that was really cool. And another lady sent us pins, and another one sent us handwritten letters. So I think a lot of those counselors wanted to say yes, but it was the mayor. We couldn't get her we couldn't sway her. We tried. Then Richmond Hill was our next one. And Richmond Hill, Georgia, which is a strange place out of all the places in our country. This class, when I asked where we should go, this girl raised her hand, and she recommended Richmond Hill, because her grandparents lived there, and it's a really pretty town, she said. So no one else had anything else to offer, so that's where our letters went, and we got a yes from Richmond Hill, so it was good. It's a small town of 28,000 people, 300 miles away. And we got our letters all together. Our letters went to Canada and Texas and to Georgia. And here we are. Those 3 little dots you can see, we put them there this year. Those are our dots. And all of these dots right here are the dots that we have done in years past. And I'm very thankful to my students for thinking outside the box and wanting to go to these other far off places, because I never would have thought that. I know I would have stuck in our little area, and I think what they want to do is better. And they also have looked at this space here and noticed that it's empty, and they are recommending that 3rd grade next year reach out to that area, fill in those gaps, and get some monarch habitat flowing through that area. So here's a list of 17 mayors that have signed that pledge, thanks to my 3rd graders over the last 6 years. And the ones highlighted in red are our all-star mayors. They have continued to sign the pledge each year, going above and beyond to protect monarchs and pollinators. Mayor Gilbert in Apex, Mayor Colley in Morrisville, Jessica Day in Nightdale. There's a new mayor in Garner that's not Mr. Marshburn anymore, and Mr. Hooks in Mebane. They keep signing it, and we love that. And we make sure we send them thank you letters every year, because we love that they're making a really good commitment to monarchs and pollinators. Okay, so when all of our letters are in the mail, then I ask the kids, how do we let others know that pollinators really need our help? And this is when they need to be creative and think outside the box. And things get really crazy busy when they spring into action, but amazing things happen when I step back and let them take the lead. So this is the part where I finished my part, and now it's their turn to tell me what kind of things are we going to do now to let others know about this crisis. So this is kind of when we start our community outreach. So this is last year. This is Isaac, and he had this super idea. I love it. I think it's a great one. He thought about pizza without pollinators. He said, Mrs. Thompson, if we didn't have pollinators, our pizza would just be crust. It's like, And when we thought about it and talked about it, it's like, he's right. And so we talked about it as a class. And of course, this doesn't happen in one class. This is after really brainstorming and thinking this through and talking it through as a big group. And what we eventually came up with was we created stickers. They're about 2 inches in diameter. So that's a sticker that you see up there, but it's really big, obviously, but it's about a 2-inch sticker. And we distributed these to pizza parlors in Holly Springs, to Acme Pizza and Randy's Pizza. And if you scan that QR code, it would take you to this really adorable infomercial that Isaac made and Charlotte. So Charlotte is a little girl in this video. She wrote the script, and there you can see their siblings are the extras, and it's just really cute. And this is, if you scan that QR code, if you got that sticker on your pizza box, it would take you to this video, and it would also take you to our website, which would tell you how you can help pollinators as well.
Delivery. Oh, gee, thanks. Hey, wait a minute. This pizza's just crust. Didn't you hear? Pollinators are in trouble. This is what your pizza would look like without pollinators. I know that pollinators help tomatoes grow for the sauce and other vegetables too. But what about the cheese and meat? Well, cow's milk makes cheese, and bees help pollinate the food cows eat. So if there's less food for cows, then we will definitely have much less cheese and meat for us to eat too. Pollinators are really important, aren't they? What can we do to help them? I thought you would never ask. We can do lots of things to help pollinators, like plant more flowers, create more habitats, and stop spraying pesticides. That is really harmful to pollinators. Wow, you've given me a lot to think about. I guess it's time we go get busy and help pollinators. Thanks for letting me know. Later, dude. Pizza! Not today, kids. We've got some important work to do. Pollinators are a changer. Please help them be a world changer.
So that's pretty awesome, isn't it? So they came up with that themselves. I really didn't have much to do with it. I helped with the pizza box. I think that might have been all I contributed. I helped print the script, but this was really their idea. They took it out. They took it onto themselves. They worked on it at home and brought it to me, and I passed it on to someone else to get on our website. But this was all made by my kids. Really great stuff. And this is a Pizza Without Pollinators poster created and delivered to Acme Pizza by Mary. This is Mary. And Mary is also the creator of the slogan you heard in that video. Pollinators are in danger. Please help and be a world changer. The kids are really great at coming up with these super slogans. That's another thing we spend time doing, and boy, they come up with some really good ones. This is another project we did last year called Be Smarter, Plant Harder. The kids made we made 10 of these signs, laminated, and we took them to local garden centers. And these were linked to our website. There are signs for people going shopping for plants at the garden center. Maybe they don't know what to buy, and everybody always picks plants that they like, not thinking about what pollinators like. And this QR code, if they were to scan it, it says scan here for plants pollinators will love. If they scan there, it would take them to our website, which has a whole list of pollinator plants. And these slides were created by my third graders, all third grade work here. And I've just pulled a few off the website. There were more there available, but this is just an example of their work. They're just amazing. And I never have to make anybody do this, by the way. They all volunteer. I love it. And when I was at Fairview Garden Center just this year, I spotted that some of these posters still on display. So they are still maybe sending people, helping people make really good choices when they're buying plants. And our last project from last year was the No Pesticide Pledge. That was a project that Alex came up with. And this was on our website as well. It was a Google form that people could go to sign, just to make a promise they wouldn't use pesticides. We got over 100 signatures, which we thought we should have had more, but this one was harder to push out into the public than the other two. We did get a story put in our local Suburban Living magazine, but the placement of the QR code was kind of tricky. So I think it got lost in the ad. So I think if it would have been placed a different way, we might have gotten a little more traffic with that. That's still a really great idea. And here's our school logo. And one of my students took it upon himself to make a pollinator friendly logo for us, since we were doing all this great stuff last year. And I love that. I think it's adorable. We made that into a sticker as well. Our pollinator friendly Pine Springs logo. Now into 2024, just this spring. Here we are in this year's amazing ideas. So this slogan, Monarchs Matter, I absolutely love. I think it's so great. Jonathan was writing his letter to a mayor, and he had his butterfly, and I showed you the paper butterflies the kids color and cut out, and he was writing his message on the back. And I looked over his shoulder, and he wrote, Monarchs Matter. That's all he wrote on the message. And that just struck me. I thought, wow, those 2 words say so much. And I just love that. And so I shared it with everyone, and this became our project for his class. And his classmate, Nico, came up with this great logo for Monarchs Matter, which I love, and you're going to see here in a moment again. And here we have some Monarchs Matter banners made by some of my 3rd graders, really pretty artwork. And these look so much brighter in person. They don't show up as nice here, but they were quite beautiful. And we use those to go to our very first community event. We took Monarchs Matter to Earth Fest this year. We've never done this before. You can see the Monarchs Matter in the background, that logo that Nico had made, and the girls' banners are on the side. So the kids had this great idea. They know milkweed is the biggest threat that's really keeping monarchs numbers really low. So they wanted to give away free milkweed. And we learned that that's really hard to find milkweed. John was helping me get seeds, and we were trying to get seeds, we were trying to get plants, and it was a struggle, but it came together in the end. But the kids were not giving them away completely free. You can see the sign on the table. It said free for a promise. So you couldn't just take the milkweed. You had to make a promise. And the promise was on the plant and on the stick in the plant. It said, I promise to plant this milkweed and not use pesticides. And so no one was allowed just to take the plant and walk away. They had to sign a contract first. And that was a kid's idea. So this project was twofold. We're creating a habitat for monarchs, but we're also getting people to make a pledge to not spray pesticides, which I think is pretty great. And so the milkweed plants are from Chad Chandler, one of our members. My friend Violet, she made that little logo, and my friend Rion did the print. And there was a little video attached to this project as well. So here we are again with a new crop. I had kids we did a sign up genius because I couldn't have 20 kids there at once. So we had a rotation of kids, and we had a busy afternoon. And that was my first time going to an event like that with kids. I was glad when we finished. It was a busy day. But Mayor Gilbert stopped by to say hello. He thanked the kids for their leadership and their hard work. And I said, hard work? They thought it was fun. They thought that was the best time. They enjoyed that so much. In fact, one of those little girls up there in class is so shy, never speaks, and you never hear her voice. But when she got a chance to talk about milkweed or monarchs, she just shined, and she could talk and talk and talk to strangers about these things that she was very, very passionate about. And I just saw a whole new side of her. It was just really great to see. And another little girl up there, I got to see the leadership qualities that I had not seen in her in the classroom just really come through. So this is a really great place for me to see these kids that I wouldn't see, just a whole new way to see them that I wouldn't see them in the classroom. Another program we did this year seems like an obvious thing to do in hindsight, but I never thought about it before. A little girl said, Mrs. Thompson, why don't we give away seeds? Yes, that's a great idea and not really that difficult to do. So I jumped on this one because we have to do multiple projects because I have multiple classes. I've got 5 classes, so we can't all do the same thing. So this class, actually, we put 2 classes together for this. We called it Save, Protect, Preserve Pollinators. And we gave away wildflower seeds. And this design, the seed packet design was by Alexana. And we packed a lot of seeds. Luckily, I had 125 very eager friends to help me do it. So it went really, really quick. I was worried that it was going to be hard. In like half an hour, we're done. And they loved it. It was like little elves at work. They thought it was the best time ever. And then we went to our second community event. We went to the farmer's market in Holly Springs and we gave away free seeds. So you see the kids here, they're behind the scenes. They did not stay there. They were out here in the front giving away seeds. No one could walk by without getting seeds from my kids that day. They were very, I don't want to say aggressive, but they were very happy to give away their seeds. So this actually was 2 events in one tent. I didn't have the nerve to ask for 2 tents because we did get this space for free. So we combined 2 different events here. We had our Save, Protect, Preserve Pollinators crew on this half. And on the other side, our other project we had going on was called Be Gone Pesticides. And this is an idea that little boy William had, which we ran with. We liked it. And that was on the other side of the tent. And that picture was taken when it was a little bit quieter in the morning. So what these kids were doing on this side, they had, you can see posters on the side. They have posters that had plants that repel pests naturally, and they had natural things you can spray to get rid of pests instead of using pesticides. And on the back, you can see there's a little table, and we had a table for kids to come in. Kids helping kids plant pollinator seeds, which is kind of fun. They love that stuff. They feel very important. And in those little seed packets, in those boxes there, we had our logo, our Be Gone Pesticides logo. And at the top it says spray safe, mint, chili pepper, garlic, vegetable oil, salt spray. So those are all things you can spray that are safe. And the kids colored those and glued all those, glued them on sticks at school. And so we had them all ready for our big day at the farmer's market. And my really good friend, my art teacher friend at school, she helps me with a lot of these. When it's art related, she's very helpful in getting all these things ready for me. Oh, and back there's a little QR code here too for this group. This is my Be Gone Pesticides, and these are my 3 friends, Nora, Caroline, and Liam, and this video is super cute too.
This is Caroline and Nora with the Pollinator News. Well, Nora, spring has sprung. Yes, you should be seeing lots of pollinators by now. Let's go to Liam and check out those pollinators. Thanks, Caroline and Nora. Let's look for some pollinators. I don't see any bees. I don't see any hummingbirds, beetles, flies, wasps, or butterflies. I don't see any pollinators. This is awful. Back to you, Caroline and Nora. I think we know the problem. Pesticides!
Pesticides are so dangerous for pollinators. Pesticides make pollinators sick, they make them lose their way home, and worst of all, pesticides make them die. We need to start taking care of pollinators and stop using pesticides.
The time is always right to help pollinators. Be gone pesticides!
Okay, so this is one of the phrases they used in that video. The time is always right to help pollinators, and that's one of the slogans they came up with this year. And that there's so many. I could show you. I have slides of slogans these kids come up with that are amazing, and that they're right. The time is always right to help pollinators. So just this group of kids from January through May, this is what they accomplished. So how third grade changed the world in 2024. They wrote 120 letters to 5 mayors and 39 town and city council members telling them about the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. 3 mayors signed the pledge to complete 11 actions from 2 states, Texas and Georgia, from 2 countries, USA and Canada, 2 community events, Earth Fest and the Farmers Market. They gave away 535 wildflower seed packets, gave away 325 milkweed seed packets, gave away 66 milkweed plants, and got 134 signatures of people promising not to use pesticides. They protected pollinators and created pollinator habitat all over North America. That's in 4 months they did that. Isn't that amazing? That's a lot of stuff for one class or one group of kids. I love that. I think that's big. Imagine if every school could do something like that. The world would be a whole different place, wouldn't it? So this is a little girl, Violet. She was writing a little news story, and I highlighted. Now I'd like you to hear a little bit of their words. You've heard mine enough, and I just wanted to read a little bit of a couple of girls write things they've written. This year, we have done some amazing things. We went to Earth Fest and gave away 100 seed packets filled with milkweed. We also got 134 promises to not use pesticides. Wow. In short, we rock when it comes to saving pollinators, that is. Hey, why don't you help pollinators too? We need pollinators. They rule. But wow, third graders. It's like she's really surprised that we did that. Like, that's just amazing. And can't even believe they did all that. And this next one is from my friend Karis. And this one touches my heart so much. This was the very end of the year. One of my last classes I had with them, and they had free time and they could do whatever they wanted in my room. And she sat down with a piece of paper and she wrote this letter to the future third grade class, which I thought was pretty amazing. She's thinking about the kids coming behind her and she's thinking about what they're going to do. And this is what she wrote. This is Mrs. Lane's class. We did so much, did something big, huge even. We helped the pollinators, and we want you, the future third graders, to continue to help, save, protect, and preserve pollinators. There is absolutely nothing you can't do. That's pretty sweet. I got a tear in my eye when she showed me that. That just really touched my heart. It was super amazing that she's thinking of somebody else and she's thinking about the pollinators, and when she knows that she's not going to be working on that next year. So in closing, when we give kids the tools, time, and space to create change, they can truly do great things. And these kids are not only helping pollinators, they're inspiring kids across America. The National Wildlife Federation is creating a Mayor's Monarch Pledge action card for their Eco Schools program based on what my students have been doing at Pine Springs. So protecting pollinators and inspiring others to do the same, I have to say, I really like how the future looks in these kids' hands. They're doing really great things. That's it.
Well, that was just fantastic. Anyway, thank you. I think that was fantastic, technology aside. I think we're very proud of you, and I know you're very proud of what your classes have done. And it's very inspirational to us, I think to all of us, really, there's some hope, right? This is the next generation. If they can take action like that, we're going in the right direction. So thanks to you, very inspiring. We'd now like to take some questions from the audience as well as online. So go ahead and let me know if you have a question, then I'll see if I can get this microphone. Do it locally then. Go ahead, John.
fundamentally. They're a bee city and they have taken off and done some. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Yeah, what, thank you. Once we get them to sign, we are on to the next thing, as you can tell. It's rolling. It's so fast moving and we don't stop because there's always that next thing that we're moving on to. So if we had time, we could bother those mayors more, but we try not to. We do send thank you letters for sure. And then we kind of close that out and go on to the next thing where they can think of the next great thing they can do. Yes. Yes, and there are 30 action items they can choose from. And they only have to pick 3, but they can pick as many as 30 if they want, but most only pick about 3. I think our best one, I think someone chose 13. Our biggest thrill was when Apex signed and one of their 3 action items, I don't believe it was 3, they probably had more than 3, but one of the action items they chose was they were going to stop using pesticides citywide. All their groundskeepers were going to not use pesticides anymore. And when I told my students that, they just screamed. They were so happy. That was just like really, they knew what a big deal that was and recognized it. And they made that happen. You know, if they hadn't written those letters, that wouldn't have happened. And they were so proud of that change that they made happen. And when I tell my next kids, I always tell all the other kids that come behind about that story, that just the power they have with a little letter really makes a difference. Okay.
So the first one is from Undy, and Undy's wondering, is there a plan to reach out to Durham's mayor and city council?
I think Durham has signed the pledge already, I believe, because we would have. Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then the next question is, what's that moment like in the classroom when you get a letter back from the mayor or you get a response? Is there like a celebration? Do you guys have a party or what goes on?
Well, we get very excited. It is we cheer. It's a party for a moment, for sure. One of the ones that was funny this year is that the mayor of Laredo never got back to us at all. And we didn't even think they signed the pledge. And I happened to be scrolling. I was having actually a down day because we only got 2 mayors to sign the pledge. And I was really feeling bad. And it was a teacher work day and I was at school all by myself and I'm scrolling through the signatories and there's Laredo right there in the list. And I screamed all by myself in my classroom. I was so excited and I actually got teary. I really did. And I had no one I could tell. And I was wishing the kids were there so bad because they would have celebrated with me because there's nobody who would be as excited as me except the kids. I could go tell the teacher next door, but she'd be like, so, but the kids, they're my people. And so we get excited. And so that was a really big deal when I saw Laredo had signed, but they never told us and they never reached back out to us, but we did send them a thank you letter, but they must be too busy to get back. But it's pretty exciting when we hear back for sure.
Are you hopeful that other schools will take this on, something similar to what you've done?
They should, because the National Wildlife Federation is replicating what we're doing and they're sharing what we're doing in their Eco Schools program. And they've interviewed me and they're taking notes from what we've done and they really want kids to take this on. It's such a great project for kids for so many reasons. It's a civics lesson. Kids can go to visit their town hall. They can get to meet their mayors and those local representatives. It's a win-win for everybody involved, even for the mayors and for those people who work in our towns and cities. So it's a great platform for kids to be involved in, and they are taking it, trying to get other people to replicate it across the country. I think they should, because the kids absolutely love it. And the mayors do too. They love meeting the kids and a few mayors have told us that they have taken their letters that the kids have written and framed them and put them on their walls in their office those little butterflies that they get, they have put those on their walls or on their bulletin boards. So they love these little moments. They actually, they're very touching to them as well.
Yeah, they will. Okay, I see in the neighborhoods of this mosquito joes go through on, and I know that they think they're killing mosquitoes and that's what the people are, but my assumption is that it kills virtually everything.
Mhm.
Now, the people next door do it and they fog their bushes with that stuff. I don't know how often it is, once a
Mhm.
month or once a week. I don't know how often it is.
Mhm.
I know that, and I actually, interestingly, I saw a piece on one of the new local TV stations at night, and they were talking about this mosquito and how dangerous this mosquito was, and we better, I think they were trying to promote, inadvertently maybe, Mosquito Joe's business about coming in and trying to kill these mosquitoes, but what kind of effect does that have on bugs other than mosquitoes?
Well, we talk about that in class. We do talk about Mosquito Joe for sure. And when we had our Monarchs Matter event in Earth Fest, a few people came by. So when they're asking for their milkweed and they have to sign and our pledge that says they won't use milkweed, a few people said, "Does Mosquito Joe count?" And we said, "Oh, yes." And the kids said, "Oh, yes, that counts." And they would have to walk away and they didn't take our milkweed. So yeah, that is awful for pollinators. And I tell that to my kids, even though they have probably some of them at home that have it sprayed in their yards, but that's not good for any living thing. It's not even good for us. I tell the kids it gets on their pets' feet when they go in the house, and it's, it doesn't just stay outside. It goes in the, it comes off in the rain. And so, yeah, we do talk about that. It's a pesticide, isn't it? No matter how you package it.
Katie, have you or any of your colleagues or people involved in this, have you gotten any news in terms of like good news, maybe a town saying, hey, we're starting to see monarchs again?
We haven't heard back from anyone yet. No, not yet. Mm-mm.
I mean, I've had one so far. I have a lot of milkweed, but I was glad to see just that one, but
Mhm.
you're kind of hoping that maybe the numbers will.
Well, you saw in that chart, the numbers, the monarch population really declined last year. It went down 60%. And so I told the kids we are excited by the work that we've done, but we still have a lot more to do. And we're just getting started because there's a lot more to be done.
I know you mentioned the story about the little girl who threw away the wasp spray. Have any of your other students shared stories about what they've personally done at home?
Yes, I have a couple of girls that have gotten upset with their dad who sprayed the lawn, and then dad has actually contacted me and got upset with me because he got in trouble with his kids. And I just had to say, aren't you proud of your daughters that they're using their voice? And I can't say, I won't tell those girls not to do that. So they're doing the right thing. And I have had kids tell me they've told their dad, or it's always the dad. The dad's always a bad guy. But yes, I've had kids definitely talking to moms and dads about not spraying pesticides. And one little girl told me she even started pulling the weeds so daddy wouldn't spray them. And she said, and then he came and helped her because he felt bad. So yeah, they are taking action, and I know we'll have a crew of kids that won't use pesticides because we watch videos. One of the videos I show them is we see bees. There a scientific study where bees are given pesticides on one side of the screen and not on the other, and you can see how different their behavior changes. It's so drastic, and so they understand how dangerous they are. And then also when we talk about those neonicotinoids, and I tell the kids that neonicotinoids are banned in Europe and Canada, but they're not here. The kids are like, why? I'm like, exactly, why? And so there's just so much. I mean, we could do a whole project just around that. There's just a ton of things we could do.
teaching critical thinking to third graders, right?
Well, we talk about all these things. We sure do. We have some pretty deep discussions and kids, they're so hopeful and they're not jaded yet. That's the best thing about this age group. And I think it's like the really the sweet spot because they have that hope that's still burning and it's alive and they haven't given up on anything yet, like some of us have, a lot of, there's a certain age where people think, yeah, I can't change that. That's too big, but they aren't at that point yet. And so I don't want them to get there either.
Hey, we got time for one more question. Buddy?
About the mosquito dunks, the little round things that you can put in ponds and stuff. How serious of a pesticide is that?
I'm not sure. The kids, yeah, we talked about those too. I don't know if they can't be as bad as a spray, right? Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, yeah. I think I've read those seem like they're made of natural I have seen those and they say they're made of natural things. And that's what is, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Say it again.
Bacillus thuringiensis, something like that. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation of the species, but it's a natural pesticide. It's a chemical produced by the bacteria that inhibits the growth of the mosquito larvae.
Mm-hmm.
So is that in a little pond behind our house?
Yeah,
Actually.
yeah.
They're available on Amazon.
Bugs.
We don't. No, we don't. That's one of the things we actually talk about. Have a really good slide. We are really shocked. The kids are, and I am as well, that nobody seems to be jumping up and down and talking about this pollinator crisis because it is a big deal. Our livelihood, we rely on pollinators to live. They help produce our food, and the kids, we just don't understand why people aren't why are they not doing enough about it? And so we came with the conclusion that people don't like bugs. They don't care about bugs. And so we had another idea we've thrown around is there's a really great National Geographic cover story that with all these bugs and moths on it. It says you'll miss them when they're gone. And I made a new cover and put, instead of all those insects, I put fruits and vegetables and said, you'll miss them when they're gone. And I said, this is what people need to focus on. So we're maybe focusing on those wrong things when it comes to talking about the pollination crisis. People don't care about bugs. We're not going to get people to care about moths. We're not going to get people to care about beetles. Like I can get the kids to care, but people care about food. And if they know our food is going to go away if we don't do something about this pollination crisis, then that's one of the things we talk about. We think that might be the way to get people to wake up and realize that we got to make some changes and we got to make them fast.
Okay. Thank you, Katie, very much. You're an inspiration to all of us. This is really tremendous. As I said earlier, it gives us a lot of hope for the next generation, and the way you've inspired these kids is inspiring us. So thank you very much. And it was a great talk. I think everybody enjoyed it. I know they did. For the folks at home, this is the end of the webinar, and we're going to have a little party here without you. Sorry.